Welcome to Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct. We've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other and tap into resources in health, in business, and career services. But this podcast, this is all about athletes transitioning out of sports. It's such a major issue today, whether it's mental health, financial literacy. So we interview former collegiate and professional athletes, and we talk about their journey, their transition out of sports, and ultimately to successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. Today, so excited to have former professional baseball player Buddy Biancalana. How you doing, buddy?
I am well, Rob. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So Buddy played baseball with the Royals, and he can fill in the other teams, but we know him for the Royals, and he's going to tell you about his great experience as a World Series champion and talk about the things that he did that one World Series. So after he got retired from baseball, or he started working in the real estate area when he was still playing, but then got into that, ultimately did some announcing. And then today he is the founder and CEO of Zone Motion, which he's going to tell you all about, doing a lot of great things with many athletes across different sports. And, that's, a big part of our show is all about that is how can we help other athletes? And that's what Buddy's doing today. So first question I always ask, talk about playing sports growing up and how that shaped you.
Yeah, great. So I grew up in Northern California. I had a father who loved sports, loved baseball, and was in the stock and bond business. And being in the stock and bond business in California allows you to get home to your family at a decent time in the mid-afternoon, late afternoon. And so I was blessed that that combination allowed me to really spend a lot of time with my dad, which was great. So in the front yard, pitching to him, and then, down at the local grade school where I went to school. So we spent, tons of time, hitting me ground balls, pitching to him, hitting me fly balls, batting practice a whole bit. So that was really, really, really great. And, going to games together and just allowed me to really fall in love with the game of baseball. And I, had a front wall in my front yard of our house, or a wall in front, the front yard of our house that I'd throw a rubber ball against it every single day. And I'd sidestep planter boxes and pillars and make plays and steps. It was just really, I think, helped me establish some pretty good footwork. And then I was just enjoying myself. And I knew I wanted to play Major League Baseball at a very young age, but I was just having fun. And I couldn't wait to get home from school to go out and play ball. And so it just, it allowed me to fall in love with something, and I happened to be pretty good at it. And then, once I was drafted, I very, very quickly saw that, okay, this is a business. I was a first-round pick in '78, and I quickly saw that, okay, it's a little bit different now. And and there are a lot of good players. You could be a star in high school, and all of a sudden you sign a professional contract. You realize that a lot of guys are pretty darn good. So it quickly became a profession in which I really had to apply myself diligently on a daily basis, really establish good working habits, not taking a play off. I think that's the most difficult thing for me going from high school to professional baseball was, playing just about every day and really making sure that I was locked in every play. And it's very easy to, relax a little bit and, take things for granted. And that's when you'd get eaten up by a ground ball or something. So it really, forced me to, pay attention on a daily basis and establish good habits. So I think that's how it really shaped me as a person. The competition was great. The camaraderie with the players and, a team unit, whatever, 25 guys moving in the same direction, playing in front of fans every night that want the same thing we do. And it's just really a really great way to grow up and make a living.
Yeah, no, I always say, I joke around. I mean, truly, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player too. Unfortunately, the talent wasn't there, so now I do podcasts. Yeah, it's it means a lot doing that, and I guess it's What kind of pressures, I guess, maybe on you, like, being a first round pick? Is there more pressure on you than maybe some of the other, athletes or, baseball players that are coming out?
Well, I would say so, because the coaches, the development staff is really, their jobs depend on making sure that the players they're drafting, especially the high picks, are moving through the system. And if you're struggling, they're going to take a little heat. So you can feel the commitment they have, the pressure they have. I did a lot of early work. I had a great infield coach, great manager, I should say, in rookie ball, Jose Martinez, who ended up being our first base coach on our world championship team in '85. And he worked me hard every day. I learned so much from him, and it was really good. I was blessed to have a really good high school coach. So I was fundamentally pretty sound coming out of high school, but was able to, have some decent coaching in the minor leagues, and that was, very helpful, obviously.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So what's the talk a little bit about, obviously we always talk about the transition in sports. And so talk about your transition. Here you are, you've been, growing up playing baseball, and you all these different tournaments. And now all of a sudden, you're a first round pick and you're a professional baseball player. What was that adjustment like, going from high school to being a professional athlete?
Yeah. So it was quite an awakening for me, going 3,000. I grew up in California, and I got on a plane and went down to Florida, Sarasota, Florida, to begin my professional career at 18 years old, 3,000 miles away from home. And I'll never forget my first game was in Bradenton against the Pittsburgh Pirates rookie ball club. And early on in the game, a guy hit me, kind of a routine 3-hop ground ball, and it came up and through, and I barely got him. But I realized, these guys, everybody can run pretty well. Yeah, so I quickly realized, wow, that guy's faster than anybody I saw in high school. And so, things like that, adjusting to that, and obviously the facing, a lot of college players that were, 3 or 4 years older than me. And, if I'm 18 and they're 21, that's a big gap at that time of life. It's not like being older now, and, where someone may be 50 and 53. But those things were an adjustment. Certainly playing every day, right? And playing in
Yeah.
the Florida heat was a big adjustment. And I weighed 148 pounds when I signed, and I signed a little bit late. And, I got down to Florida, and all these guys that were my future teammates were waiting to see who the number one pick was. And I came in at 148 pounds. They said, that guy's the number one pick. What in the world? But, so playing every day was certainly an adjustment, especially at that weight in that heat.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, it's being down here in South Florida, I can understand that for sure. So,
Yeah,
what
right?
what talk about, usually a lot of times I'm asking the question about education, ultimately to transition out of sports. And I mean, you hear different things, but is there a process when you start out in the minor leagues? I mean, do they talk about that? Is that are there any kind of workshops or just classes that you might take that would kind of guide you through that, or is it all pretty much just drilled in on the sport itself?
Yeah. Then it was just you were down there to play baseball, and you just put everything you had into it. Now, I think, but I was from a very well-educated family. My dad went to Cal, my sister went to Cal, my mother went to Duke. So I was blessed to have, people who were educated, minded around me, raising me. And I didn't think I was going to sign. I was going to go to Arizona State and play. And, I thought I was going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick, but, all of a sudden I was a 1st round pick by the Royals. So I was, I always wanted to play Major League Baseball. So that was really, it was the opportunity. Like, okay, this is what you wanted to do. Your 1st round pick. They're going to give you every opportunity to make it, being a 1st round pick. And so I went ahead and took advantage of that opportunity to go play. And I would take classes in the off season at University of San Francisco or the local junior college, just to, try and develop some skills and learn some things that could benefit me in life. I remember I took a public speaking course. I took business law, couple other business courses, and so I was trying to gain somewhat of an education, but I don't. There's no education like life, life experiences, and so that's certainly where I've gotten most of my education. I've been blessed to have good people around me in my life that have, that I've learned from. I seek out what I need in life, and so I feel blessed to have made it through the transition period. Certainly, it's not easy. Plus, I had some injuries. I had plenty of concussions in my life starting out as a baby, and I was not really in good shape even when I played, and certainly when I left the game and the loss of the game, and just the whole change of lifestyle can be dramatic. And so I felt like I was prepared for it to a degree. I was, to other degrees I wasn't, but was able to, the power of the human spirit. You can figure it out. Just keep going, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, is there, and I'm sure like today things are probably, I'm sure the leagues are, probably paying more attention to this kind of thing. And I've had some other former baseball players and football players on as well. And just, is there a, like a push in, well, whether it's the Players Association or like alumni for Major League Baseball or even minor league baseball, is there a push to kind of work and help these athletes once they are done with the sport and transitioning out?
Yeah, there's more being done now. I know the baseball assistance team, and I know, I believe the MLB Players Association, they've got some programs, and there's just a lot more support now, for humans in general, right? Not just athletes, but
Right.
there's support where, we all need some sort of support at one time or another, and I like to say, our physiology can be very, very complex and can be very affected by our environment, and our belief systems come into play and how we process information. There are a lot of things that come into play that can, take us a little bit out of alignment that can keep us from, moving through life in in kind of an easier manner to where, we don't have to strain as much as we do. And that, that's certainly attractive to me. And it's kind of what I've kind of, developed with Zone Motion. But the transition, it depends, on who you are. How much value do you place on the accolades that you might accrue during your career, and what effect that has on you, as a person. And are you caught up in your press clippings where you think you're more than what you are, and you lose your humility, you lose yourself. And, I was blessed never to lose myself. I lost my health. I wasn't healthy.
Right.
I'm doing great now. But, I was always in touch with who I was. And, I'll never forget after the World Series, which we won. And, I almost won the MVP. Saberhagen rightfully won it. Or Cy Young would win the pitcher that year. But my phone was ringing off the hook with all kinds of opportunities, TV shows and endorsement, all kinds of stuff. And I remember saying to my wife at the time, I'm really not interested in doing any of this stuff. I was just playing the game I loved and having a good time doing it, and happened to have some success in the World Series, but I never got caught up in the accolades that can come with being a professional athlete. So I was always able to stay pretty humble, and like my friend Clint Hurdle says, there are two types of people in the world: those who are humble, and those who are about to be humbled. So I feel like I've been pretty humble throughout my life.
No, that's great. I mean, and I love that. I mean, it's, there's athletes that have done phenomenal, like you said, and some are just totally buy into that and have those, at least from a fan perspective, they might have that attitude. So it's nice to, when you come across, athletes that are humble. I think a lot of times that people might misread it too, until like when you meet somebody in person. I mean, it's probably, as a professional baseball player, professional athlete in general, probably sometimes people might be a little more guarded. I would imagine, just as far as, do people have the right intent or interest around you? Or, I'm sure you have to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. And certainly, fans can think that you are special because, you're in the entertainment business. You're playing on a big stage and you're on TV, and they can certainly paint a picture of you that's, certainly not accurate. We're like everybody else, right? We've got feelings and we got families and all, and we have the challenges that many humans, or if not all humans, have. Just trying to make it through the life and finding joy and touching lives and having success along the way. So there are plenty of people around that are around you for the wrong reasons.
Right.
And that being said, there are plenty of people around you, that I met in the game or around the game that, have been just wonderful.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, obviously,
being able to discern is important.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, talk about, maybe give it a little advice, in a few words, to athletes that are about to transition out of sport, regardless of whether it's they played college and they're done, they played professionally, they're done. Just how would you guide them?
I would say, make sure you take advantage of your stage. The fact that many people want to be around athletes, take advantage of the opportunity to connect with a lot of people, and spend time getting to know them and what they do, and just to see, try and network and learn about what you may want to do when you're done, playing. If you play till you're 35 years old, you've had an amazing career, and you may have another 50 years on the planet, more, 50 or 60 years on the planet. So there's a lot of life outside of baseball, and I don't know any human that can be happy just sitting around and looking at their bank account. I certainly can't. So contributing to society in a way that's fulfilling to you is really important. And so spending time, as a player, meeting people, getting to know what other industries are like, while people really want to spend time with you. When you're retired, quite often, or for some that people are not interested in spending time with you. Or,
Right.
If you've been caught up in your accolades, they may not want to spend time with you, even if you're a good guy. So, and we all want to be around good people, but there's some players who, don't treat the public like they'd like to be treated. And, it's sad to see, but that's the way it is sometimes.
Yeah, I love that, because you encapsulated a bunch of what I talk about in every show, and what athletes should look for. And it's interesting, kind of probably a good segue to networking and connecting. But I always talk about how I remember talking to one agent, and he just said, what you said is the best time for athletes to network and connect is when they're still relevant, when they're playing. And, you definitely did that. It seems like, unfortunately, some don't take advantage of that. And then when they're done, they haven't built that network and built the relationship. So all of a sudden, they're expecting to get that big high paying job. And then they have a rude awakening that, no, you didn't do that, that groundwork, right, to get you there.
You bet. Exactly.
Yeah. So, with networking and connecting, is there kind of a fraternity type thing out there with not only, I guess, other baseball players, but also with athletes in general, when it comes to wanting to work together and connect with each other?
Well, I know the Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association, is a spot where athletes can connect. And I'm not aware of my path has been a little bit different than what I would advise an athlete to do. Although I got to know a lot of people while I played, but it's been a little bit easier for me with what I do. People are really interested in what I do now, so I'm able. And I live in Kansas City where I played. We won the World Series, so it's helpful. That's been very helpful to me. Getting indoors and getting meetings and networking. But anything an athlete can do to expand his network, highly advisable. And so I know that's a lot of what you're looking to do, I believe, Rob. And so having platforms where we can come together, not just athletes but people in general. Let's help make everyone's life easier. I've always lived with the motto of, what can I do to make your life easier, right? Everybody, whoever I come across, what can I do to make your life easier? Whether it's picking up the piece of paper instead of you having to pick it up, whatever it is, but living by that. So we just help each other.
Yeah.
And we're all in life together, and the more joy, the happier every human is, the better the planet is. So living from that perspective of serving and giving and helping, makes us feel good. I always ask people, check in with how you feel if you do something nice for somebody.
Yeah.
Right? That's a gift. The giving is the receiving. And so I think, not just athletes, but let's help everybody. Let's do what we can do, and without enabling people, right? It's not about enabling people, but it is about helping them. And right, the old saying, instead of feeding someone fish, teach them how to fish, right? Something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. That's I love hearing this, because that's the way I like to live my life too. I think it's all about helping others and promoting that, just being good people and doing things. And like, you're right. It's across all spectrum. And I think when I talk about networking, connecting, sometimes that's what I talk about. I tell people, like, go in with the attitude of like, hey, I'm here, not what's Buddy going to do for me, but what can I do for Buddy? How can I help you? Because I think it's going to come back. And I think if you have that mentality, especially even, at a young age, and taking it through, it's going to take you a lot more places. I think you'll have a lot more success when people see that. I always talk about, sometimes you might be, there might be like somebody that you're trying to connect with. It's very wealthy, let's say, or like just a high level business person or professional athlete, whatever it might be. And you might think to yourself, well, what do I have that I can offer to them? You just never know, because it might be, maybe they've got a kid that wants to get into a school or needs help with something that you can help with. So just always have that attitude of being willing to help. And then also, you never know who they know, right? So, like, you might be doing one thing and like, well, what does that relate to? And like, well, Buddy's best friends with so-and-so, that it isn't that.
Yeah, exactly. You never know how the dots are going to connect. It's one of the exciting things in life, and getting to know new people is really good people. And it's like, okay, let's see what happens here. That's exciting to me. So
yeah, me too. This is cool. I'm in, man. Me and Buddy are gonna hang out. This is fun.
Exactly,
This is
right.
good. This is good stuff. So let's talk about. And we kind of touched on a little bit, but let's talk a little bit about alumni engagement. And obviously that's big to us at Alumni Direct. And talk about with bringing you mentioned the Major League Alumni Association, and I'm assuming there might be one for, I don't know, is there one for minor league baseball too, or is it just the Major League side of the house?
I don't think there is.
Right.
Yeah,
We got to work on that, right? We want to help those minor league guys out too.
Right, for sure. The good thing is, at least minor leaguers are making more money now, which is nice. That's
true.
Part of the Players Association, and their salaries are higher, which is great.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it's got to be difficult, because I guess everything, if you're going right into playing professional, then all of a sudden you're done, and maybe some of those players that might have played college ball might have some more help, because they whether it's the people they met through college. It's everything's different to that nature. So let's talk about how was you said it was a little rough. You had injuries and all. So talk a little bit more about your transition out of sport. You were still aligned with it and still are today, but talk about that. And playing all these years, was it difficult, kind of putting the glove and bat aside?
I was in plenty of pain with my back. I had a lot of anxiety when I left the game. My confidence was low. It didn't feel good at all. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't realize I had concussions. You hit your head as a child and you stop crying. They think you're okay. Well, I was far from okay. And, fell off the bathroom counter when I was a baby. My childhood pictures, my head's crooked. And,
wow.
All of that really impacted me in many ways, physically, emotionally, mentally. And that being said, I always had confidence in myself. I always believed in myself, and having the zone experience in the World Series really gave me a reference point in my life that if I could play the way I did in the World Series, despite feeling the way that I did, wow, okay, there's a lot of juice in me, a lot of power in me. And so that really was a stabilizing force during dark days to keep me going forward. Just a deep knowing that I had that I could, go do fine in the world. I wasn't in fear. There may have been fear in my nervous system for sure, but I wasn't aware of it at the time. And probably to some degree it was impacting me, but I wasn't. It was out of my awareness per se. So I spent the last year of my career on the disabled list all year with the Royals, and during that year I got into commercial real estate with a contact of mine who I'd met on a cruise ship, and not because I really wanted to be involved in commercial real estate. It was like I just didn't know what else to do, and so I did that. And during the 90-91 season, I did pre and post game show for the Royals on the weekend, and that was interesting. I learned that there are a lot of really brilliant fans out there. I learned that there were some fans out there that knew more about the game than players that I was playing with on the field. It was very interesting. But so that was kind of just something to do, and I'd always had some interest in broadcasting for whatever reason. And then through a real estate cold call, guy wanted to get in the agent business, and he worked for a group out of New York that represented the nation's top broadcasters, and so they brought me in to be of help with baseball. And so I spent, I don't know how many years in the agent business, maybe eight years in the agent business, where I learned a lot. It wasn't real profitable for me, but it just kind of, it was what I was doing, right? Trying to find my way still. And through healing, my head injuries and my neck injuries and back injuries, I learned a lot about the brain and the brain-body connection, and started to become very, very interested in developing athletes. And I ended up getting back on the field with Tampa Bay and Philadelphia, and then I managed for a couple of years in the independent league and started to train athletes, on my own, and started to see some really cool things happen when we started to really figure some things out with the brain. And so that's kind of where I'm now. I've been doing this 17 years, and I've worked with athletes in 13 professional sports with Zone Motion and over 20 amateur sports. So that's been really exciting, and just I love what I do. It's really not work for me, and it's very, very profound how we can help an athlete now.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And I think I'm gonna flip back real quick to one other question, and then I want to hear more about Zone Motion. Maybe give some examples, and you could talk about how you were in the zone in the World Series. But if you had to go back now in time, what advice would it be given to before you started this whole professional baseball journey when you're graduating from high school? What advice would you give to senior Buddy?
Good question. That a professional sports career can be short-lived, and make sure that you are planning for life after baseball. Figure out some things that you're interested in that might be able to make you a living, and spend time in the off season developing those skills, or getting the education. I think. And don't lose sight of who you are, where you came from, and who the people that have really supported you, and your close friendships, in childhood and throughout your high school years, and make sure you work at maintaining those friendships. I think is the advice that I would give.
Yeah, no, that's great. So we're going to fast forward now. So as Buddy already mentioned, he is the founder and CEO of Zone Motion, and talk about the genesis of it, as far as back to maybe that World Series experience you had, and then talk a little more about what you're doing with the athletes today.
Yeah, sure. So my interest, to the World Series. So when I was 5 years old, I knew I wanted to play in the big leagues. I could never fathom playing in the World Series. It was just like too big an event. And even when I got to the big leagues, I never thought about playing in the World Series. Like, it's something I'll watch on TV. And all of a sudden, I found myself playing in the World Series and sitting in my locker before game one of the World Series. And it really hit me like, oh my God, this is World Series. I'm the starting shortstop. And so I was really nervous in that moment. But was able to really process the fear I had, and grabbed my glove and my bat and my helmet and went down and waited for my name to be introduced and took the field and ended up playing arguably the 7 best baseball games of my career and almost won the MVP of the series. Again, Brett Saberhagen, our Cy Young Award winning pitcher, won that award. And, I played airless at shortstop for 7 games, all 14 games of the postseason. And choose my words carefully when I say that every single ball at shortstop hit me right in the sweet spot of my glove, and every throw came out of my hand with perfect speed and trajectory. And it was almost a feeling of not being able to do anything wrong, even if I tried. And there was one specific play that I like to talk about. I think it was like game 5 in St. Louis, where I think Ozzie Smith stole second base, and the ball kicked away from our second baseman, Frank White, into shallow left center field. And I, ran out there and retreated, picked it up, and just turned and wheeled and made an easy throw back to second to keep Ozzie at second base. And it was no big deal. I mean, probably everyone who is viewing this podcast could make the same play. And anybody who saw me make that play was like, oh, no big deal. But in the moment, I had the feeling that I could have kicked it to him perfectly. That's how I felt. And I felt like there was this force that was overtaking my whole being that was just had me, that was taking care of me. And, I hit 73 points higher than my career average and almost won the MVP. And then 20 months later, I was out of the big leagues because I had no idea what took place in my brain and body that allowed me to experience the game as, slowing down and not thinking and very fluid, effortless motion and great timing. And, I just didn't understand it. And the subsequent pressure I felt and the anxiety when I went back to spring training, trying to replicate something that happened on a really big stage, the World Series, without understanding. So what happened in my brain and body that allowed me to do that? And so, again, 20 months later, out of the big leagues. And so through lots of healing and, great teachers and learned from a lot of people, what does happen. And Stephen Yellen was very instrumental in my putting together some things. And so was able to develop a training methodology on and off-field training methodology that complements traditional coaching that really helps an athlete integrate all the things that are really, really important. The biomechanics that I don't teach, I leave that to the coaches, but what's taking place in the brain and the emotional body so that everything can kind of come together in a very smooth way so that development can really be expedited, performance increases, and even soft tissue injuries are decreased, or the chance of soft tissue injuries decrease because all the muscles start to fire in a very harmonious, sequential manner when the brain and the body has the proper level of coherence. So that's my area of expertise now. And again, I've worked in 13 pro sports and have a lot of fun doing it.
So how do they do? Are you just traveling all over the place and around the country to the different locations and then working with the coaches to implement some of what you're training on?
I do some of that. I do a lot of work over FaceTime or Zoom as well with individual clients, and I can even work with teams over FaceTime, but also in person as well.
Do you have a team working with you, or is it?
Nope. It's just me as of now, but at some point soon, we're going to probably have some others on board.
Yeah, I mean, this business, I see it blowing up, buddy. So all of a sudden, you're like, okay, I got a lot. There's only so much buddy that can go around. Unfortunately, we all love to clone ourselves, right?
It's starting to happen a little bit. Just the last few days, a lot of things are starting to really click, which is good. So
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, and I'm just in the process of collaborating with a group that's very involved in the NCAA. We're almost done with that agreement, and so a lot of exciting things.
And so how do people find you?
They can find me at zonemotion.com, or they can send an email to Buddy, Buddy, at zonemotion.com.
Okay, great. And that's you definitely need to reach out. I mean, it's very interesting, and there's definitely a need for help out there across all things. And you can find us at alumnidirect.com, find the show on our YouTube channel, as well as across all the different podcast networks. And also, if you go to sportsepreneur.com, our friends there. They've got multiple podcasts on their platform as well. But the bottom line is we just want to help as many people as we can. And as we talked about, just the transition out of sport can be very difficult. And I always love having these conversations with the former athletes like Buddy, and just anything that the advice that they give, I think, people just need to listen. And as athletes out there, there's people that want to help. We want to help you, and definitely don't be afraid to reach out. So thank you again, everybody. And Buddy, thanks again so much for your time.
Yeah, enjoyed it, Rob. Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome.